A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. The demon continued, when you fall dead with your skull smashed by the mace hurled by my arms, the demigods and sages who offer you oblations and sacrifice in devotional service will also automatically cease to exist, like trees without roots. Report by Srila Prabhupada. Demons are very much disturbed when devotees worship the Lord in the prescribed ways recommended in the scriptures. In the Vedic scriptures, the neophyte devotees are advised to engage in 9 kinds of devotional service, such as to hear and chant the holy name of the Lord, to remember him always, to chant on beads, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to worship the Lord in the form of a deity, his deity incarnation in the temples, and to engage in various activities of Krishna consciousness to increase the number of godly persons for perfect peace in the world. Demons do not like such activity. They are always envious of God and his devotees. Their propaganda not to worship in the temple or church, but simply to make material advancement for satisfaction of the senses is always current. The demon Hiranyaksha, upon seeing the Lord face to face, wanted to make a permanent solution by killing the personality of Godhead with his powerful mace. The example of an uprooted tree mentioned here by the demon is very significant. Devotees accept that God is the root of everything. Their example is that just as the stomach is the source of energy of all the limbs of the body, God is the original source of all energy manifested in the material and spiritual worlds. Therefore, as supplying food to the stomach is a process to satisfy all the limbs of the body, Krishna consciousness, or developing love of Krishna, is a sublime method for satisfying the source of all happiness. The demon wants to uproot this source because if the root, God, were to be checked, the activities of the Lord and the devotees would automatically stop. The demon would be very much satisfied by such a situation in society. Demons are always anxious to have a godless society for their sense gratification. According to Sridhar Swami, this verse means that when the demon will be deprived of his maze by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not only the neophyte devotees, but also the ancient, sagacious devotees of the Lord will be very much satisfied. Oma Ginati Mirandasya Gyana Ganashalakaya Chakshu Umilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaistabam Scha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Saadvaitam Saavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Panamani Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhescha Kripa Sindhive Eva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Om Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaura Bhani Pacharini Nirveshesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshacharini Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padaya Te Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gvachise Maha Ananda Lidamaya Vigrahaya Himabhyadi Vacha Vishndaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Rasmadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. The English translation again. The demon continued. When you fall dead with your skull smashed by the mace hurled by my arms, the demigods and sages who offer you oblations and sacrifice in devotion service will also automatically cease to exist, like trees without roots. Hare Krishna. So, the demon, as many demons do, when they get ready to fight, they start with the preliminary words that kind of boost their own ego and their own confidence. And they make some predictions. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that to you, and this is going to be the result of what I do to you. This is no different in the case of Lord Varaha when Hiranyaksha saw him face to face. He was sure that he could kill the Lord. Of course, the Shastra tells us the Lord it's not possible to kill the Lord. But don't tell the demons that. Because for them it doesn't matter. If they have their plans, they have their plans. And they're gonna do what they're gonna do. That's the way they think. That's the way they operate. So Hiranyaksha was determined that the only way to do this is to get rid of the Lord permanently. And all of these other devotees who like worshiping the Lord and whose very existence very much involves worshiping the Lord, serving the Lord, they will not have anything to do. They'll stop because the Lord is gone. So they wouldn't know how to live or what real reason to live. That was the reason for living before, is to serve the Lord. So killing the Lord would solve everything. In the demon's mind, he was thinking like that. And so, as the text indicates, the demon Hiranyaksha was even thinking, when you fall dead with your skull smashed by the mace hurled by my arms. So he knew how he was going to go about it. Literally giving his strategy away, but that's another topic for another time. Then he says, the demigods and sages who offer you oblations and sacrifice and devotion service will also automatically cease to exist. So he was not only envious of Krishna, he was envious of the demigods and sages who are also serving by offering oblations and sacrifice. And that happens a lot in the higher planets. There's a lot of sacrifice like that going on, pujas going on. Brahmaloka, well, actually Mahaloka, Janaloka, Sat, and Tapaloka, and especially Brahmaloka. There's constant, according to Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's constant oblations. And when the pujas are finished, then the Lord Gaudakshay Vishnu gets his share. Mahavishnu Karnadakshay Vishnu also gets his share of the prasadam from the offering. So Hiranyaksha obviously knew about it. The demigods and sages also offer oblations. They do that. We know in Ramayana, Ramayana, Ravana sent some of his demon associates to go and spoil the pujas, the oblations being offered by the sages in the forest. And so Vishwamitra Muni had to come to see Dasharat, who then had the sons Ram and Lakshman, to ask the father to allow him to take Ram and Lakshman and train them to get rid of the demons. Because the demons at that point were putting all sorts of untouchable things, raining it down on the sacrifices. So yes, this is a thing that happens a lot with the sages. They go through different types of offerings and then also long sessions of just, thinking about the Lord, praying to the Lord, being still in the lotus posture. We in these days in Kali Yuga can't do much of that. So yes, sometimes Srila Prabhupada has already put in the society times where we offer oblations. We do fire sacrifices. In the time the spiritual master is going to give Harinam initiation or sometimes Brahman initiation, that happens. So we know that to a limited extent. But in Brahmaloka, it's constantly occurring. When you finish one, they start another one. Finish one, they start another one, like that. Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, the demons are very much disturbed when the devotees worship the Lord in the ways prescribed in the scriptures. The demons are disturbed about it. So the demons don't want anybody to worship the Lord. And this particular demon here in Yaksha didn't even want the Lord to exist at all. He wanted to get rid of, kill him. But the demons being very much disturbed means that the demons are envious of the devotees. Why else would they be disturbed about what the devotees are doing? The devotees are not doing things for the demons, so the demons could easily ignore what's happening, but they are disturbed about it. And this sometimes happens to us also. We have to be very, very careful. Sometimes Maya can lead us in ways that we never at first thought even we would do, but then we find ourselves caught in it. We are a society of devotees, and so we relate to each other a lot, especially when we come to the temple. We have to be careful. I was reading the other day, offenses to devotees should be taken very, very seriously. We have to be very much aware of the fact that offenses, Vaishnava aparad, can completely destroy our quest to go back home. It can completely destroy it. In the initiation, the spiritual master asks how many rounds you're going to chant. Minimum, we say 16 rounds of japa, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. What are the 4 regulative principles? And then we go through the regulative principles and say, we're going to stop eating meat, fish, eggs. We're not going to involve ourselves in illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication. In plain sight, before deities, before Agni, the fire, and before the devotees, we say that. Now, it does mean for many of us a change of lifestyle, unless we were born to devotee parents who already were practicing that way, and then as children we grew up in that environment. That's one thing. But in the society, a good many of us did not grow up that way. So we had our own family life we were leading, and we didn't see these regulative principles as ones that we shouldn't break. We were just living according to that for sense gratification. And so, of course, our lifestyle now is going to have to change, and every devotee gets to the point that they ask themselves that question, can I deal with this change in my life? It also means that my friends that I used to enjoy sense gratification with me, they're going to have to go. It can't be my friends because I can't relate to them in this way, and they will not be comfortable with me either. And when the result of doing that becomes very plain, the result, we get to go back to Godhead. We get to develop Krishna Prema. In the devotee's mind, it far outweighs the kind of sacrifice or change of lifestyle that we begin to see that the change of lifestyle is definitely worth it. That's when we agree, all right, we're going to do this. And then associating with devotees, we begin to chant and chant seriously. And when Krishna sees, Krishna is already in the heart as Paramatma, sees how serious we are, then he will lead us to one spiritual master who is an initiating guru, who we'll feel comfortable with when he speaks to us or when he gives lectures. And that's how the process starts. Once the person is initiated, it's like getting a reservation to go back to Godhead. So the question is how we live our life going forward. The spiritual master also guides. So this is all there for devotees. Anything outside of that is demonic life. Srila Prabhupada literally played a role in his preaching, like a dialogue. A person has met another person, and the first person asks the second person, "Sir, do you believe in God?" The second person says, "No." So Prabhupada drew the conclusion. If the second person says no, he's a demon. It doesn't matter how nicely he's dressed. It doesn't matter how well behaved he is. If he doesn't believe in God, he's a demon. So there's a clear demarcation. Hmm? Those who are demons and those who are demigodly, at least. We are not demigods, but in behavior, we're being directed the way demigods live their lives. And that's those two categories. That's it. So the demonic and the pious or demigodly. Demons want full control of this planet, and indeed the whole material world if they can get it. They despise God and his devotees. They're envious and they despise what the Lord's devotees do, especially. Now, the other things that they do, they try to take the minds of everyone, devotee or non-devotee, by spreading deception. And they use scientific means to make people believe, especially in World War II, as an example, in Hitler's time. Germans were made to believe that the Western people in the West were very crude and they were very vicious. And this was repeated in their, ways of communication, radio, whatever they were using at the time, over and over and over and over again. So the average German believed it because they heard it so many times. So to become a prisoner of war as a German in World War II meant you actually can think that you're better off dead than to be seized by the soldiers in the Western countries. It was that bad. So demons spread propaganda. Now, devotees should also spread Krishna consciousness in propaganda form by way of more temples, more book distribution, and also Harinam. Chant the holy name. Lord Chaitanya did that. First in Navadvip, and then all around India. And many people joined. So simple living is also the solution to an ever increasingly complex society. Anything that we get these days, it should come with a question. Is it going to help my Krishna consciousness? And you should get a yes in your mind with good reason before you get it. Otherwise, it's also part of the demonic propaganda. It's one of my god sister made a song, says, never, 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 never surrender to the demon agenda. She made it in a reggae style. She played it a couple of times, sang it a couple of times when we were in Maryland. So she's called Raga Devi Dasi, good musician. So we should not give in to the demonic plans. One of the things that we got to realize, and it's been said so many times, but we got to keep telling ourselves, this is not home. The demons want the material world, just like Hiranyaksha. He wanted all the gold, and he was mining the gold like anything. So much so that it tipped the earth. The earth fell to the Gabdak Ocean all the way to the bottom. And the Lord incarnated as the boar from the nostrils of Lord Brahma. First as little, but then they expanded. And then he dove into the ocean, the Gavadak Ocean, and brought up the earth. And then later, when the demon faced him, is where we are now. The demon was ready to fight. And he was saying that he was going to smash the Lord's head with his mace. And all the demigods and everyone else, that's all of us included, won't be able to worship the Lord because we don't worship someone that's dead. So that was the solution. Mm. So basically, we live simply if we don't play into the agenda of the demons. We shouldn't be so captivated with everything that comes out because there are so many ways in which science can take one thing and join it to another thing and take one thing and join it to another thing. Mm. Now we have AI, and AI is being used in so many ways. There was one guy that said is a devotee in Harrisburg, and he was involved in the original research for AI. And so he was describing what was being done to have AI be as effective as it is. But even with that, AI still makes mistakes. Mm. And it's been proven that AI makes mistakes. But it's got to the point where people are beginning to be a little bit more careful how far the AI is going. We have tried certain experiments, making AI be the sole controller of things. And then they realized we better scrap this because AI actually is going to be able to defeat us. This is a military thing. I won't get into the details of it. So demonic activity is like that. They're always trying to look for different ways. Devotees should always remember the Lord. Our life is simple. We chant the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And Krishna says, Aham Sabasya Pavava, Matasavam Prabhatate. I am the source of everything, material and spiritual. So if you call on the name of the Lord and He being absolute, you call Krishna, you get Krishna. So calling on the name of the Lord should be a thing that we should do all of the time. And we can't remind ourselves enough of the need to chant the holy name, to keep ourselves straight, because the way things are going in Kali Yuga, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. The news may say this, may say that, may say this, may say that, but your own intelligence, my own intelligence should tell me and you what they give is what they want, because the press has journalists that have to say something every day. So then these politicians throw breadcrumbs for them to eat it, basically. They tell you whatever they tell, but what they really plan to do, you don't know. And they won't say it. So how good is the news? How believable is the news? That's why we don't deal with it so much. The news is always going to be there because the press, they get up, they have to put a video out. They have to put something out. Mm-hmm. So stay the course. Krishna consciousness, going back home. This place, if the demons want to take it like Hiranyaksha wanted to do it, that's okay. But they don't own it though. For us, that's their program. When I say it's okay, it doesn't mean it's good. That means that's what they want to do. Okay, meaning that's what they want to do. But we want to go back home. Because this place, as we're talking now, and this morning is snowing, and it's going to snow for the next 12 hours or so, it will make life difficult. We know that. So life is already difficult in this planet. Who wants to stay here? So if the demons want it, they can't get the spiritual world. This is the place they try to. And that's what they live their lives for. Mm-hmm. Hiranyaksha wanted all the gold. Gold is the standard now. Even now, it is the standard for finance. And so if Hiranyaksha wanted the gold, Hiranyaksha wanted to be the richest ever on this planet. And that's what he was trying to do. And there are people who want that still. Plenty of Hiranyakshas around. They may not get as much gold, but they will try. Mm-hmm. For us, the best situation is the soul being freed from the body, and it's Satchitananda characteristics coming out plainly. Being eternal, being full of knowledge, and being always blissful, extremely happy. This is the life that Srila Prabhupada has directed us to. and Srila Prabhupada's disciples and their disciples are directing us to. We should never be taken mentally by the things going on here and be mesmerized by it. We don't understand what's there in the spiritual world. We've forgotten. Because if we knew the little bit that, I'll say relatively small amount, but a little more compared to other books that Brihad Bhavatamrita gave us. Those of you who've read it, it's mind-blowing. Gopakumara and what he was describing. From planet to planet here on the earth, then up to the heavenly planets, Swagaloka, and then Mahaloka, then he went to Janaloka, then he went to Tapaloka, and then Satyaloka, and then passed it to Lord Shiva, and then to the spiritual world and the spiritual planets, Vaikuntha with Lord Narayan, and then to where Lord Ram was, and then finally to where Krishna was. And every time he gave some description about the place and what was going on. And so finally, when he describes the spirit, we won't have time to go through all of that. We're talking about 3 books here worth of information. But in the spiritual world, believe me, it's especially Golok Vrindavan, there are so many attributes to Golok Vrindavan, it's uncountable. And every one of them is positive. Now, in chapter 15, Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna describes this material world, and then he says, but there's another world, not illuminated by electricity or light or this kind of sun's light. That is permanent. Not like the material world that half the time is in the body of Mahavishnu and half the time is out. It's not like that. It's permanent. And anyone who goes there, they won't return. And sometimes the question has been asked by devotees, how do we know that we won't return? Chandamali Swami actually gave a description that really answers the question quite appropriately. So Krishna says, one that goes here from the material world to the spiritual world won't come back. Actually, they're not going to want to come back. And this is what Chandamali Swami explained. He said enough to be able to put 2 and 2 together. So then he said, the soul is full of all knowledge. Now, all knowledge means just that, all knowledge. Not some knowledge about what the spiritual world is like, and then there's nothing about what the material world is like. Our souls, which is the real us, we've been through several lifetimes. So just go with me with this. We've been through several lifetimes. Died, been born, and died, and then been born, and then died, and then been born in different species, in some, if not all, of the 8,400,000 types of bodies that are available for living in the material world. We're going through that. We've been through that in previous lives. Now, the soul has all knowledge. It means when we leave this material world, the soul, going back to the spiritual world, the soul will still be able to remember, because it's its nature, every single lifetime in the material world and what we did. You mean how we died? How we got born? All of the species that we got born into, the type of bodies, will all be remembered by the soul. Full knowledge is just that, not just only things that happen in the spiritual world, everything that's happened here. Now I begin thinking, is it fun to die? Is it fun to be born? Is it fun to have to struggle to live? Is it fun to be in the non-human type body? Look at the non-human type bodies and what they're going through in the forests. So much anxiety. Is it fun? So if we can remember what happened in that previous lives, all of them in the previous lives, and how we died and how we got born and all kinds of places that we went to, the final conclusion is, who is going to want to take another body in the material world? Who in their right mind, that is back in Vaikuntha, is going to want to do that? So Krishna put it simply, it says they don't come back. Yeah, anybody in their right mind is not going to want to come back to this situation again. It's obvious. Mm? For those who are not bewildered, the people are in illusion, still thinking that they can have solutions to this world. But then later on, when we're fortunate enough to go back to the spiritual world, and we look back on the life that we had led here, to Tanamai Swami's point is, we will in fact remember the different lives, all of the different lives, whichever one we want to. We'll have the power to remember it. And of course, when we are having a lifetime of bliss, a lifestyle of bliss, bliss means the highest happiness. And then we remember this type of life that we live here in the material world. The conclusion is obvious. We're not going to want to come back. So Krishna knows we won't come back. So I said, they don't come back. Not because, the point is not because he stops us from coming back, because we have our free will. But it just won't make sense for us to come back to the material world again. That's why that point was made about those who go to the spiritual world, any of the Vaikuntha planets, they wouldn't want to return to the material world. So that's the situation. If we take this process seriously, then we stand that chance. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 17, Divine and Demoniac, appropriate title for this, the Divine and the Demoniac. Chapter 17, text 5 and 6. Ashastra vihitam ghoram tapyante ye tapo jana tambarankara samyukta kamaraga balambita. That's text 5. Text 6. Kasayanta sharirastam bhutagramam achetasa mam chevanta sarirastam tad vidyasura nishchayan. The translation, this is 5 and 6 together. Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish, and who torture the material elements of the body as well as the super soul dwelling within, are known to be known as demons. So demons perform austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures. And we know people like Hiranyakashipu, they did that, they did all kinds of Ravana did that. They were all trying to get boons from the demigods. And they did that kind of connection with them in that way, severe austerities. They are impelled by lust and attachment. This is going on here in the material world. So lust is a demonic activity. Lust can be purified, and that becomes love. But when love is contaminated, then it becomes lust. Attachment to material things, demons are. They torture the material elements of the body. They torture the material elements of the earth's body too. That way is just disturbing all around. They are to be known as demons. So in this chapter 17, text 5 and 6, Srila Prabhupada is actually explaining in the purport. There are persons who manufacture modes of austerity and penance that's not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions. Some people may fast for some ulterior purpose, such as to produce a purely political end, but it's not mentioned in the scriptural directions to do that. There are some people who do that. What does the scriptures recommend? Fasting for spiritual advancement, like Ekadashi, like Janmashtami, like some of the appearance days and disappearance days of our charges in our line, Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So Scriptures recommend fasting, but not for political or social purpose. Therefore, those who are doing that, they may not be devotees, but they're doing that, and there's some social purpose, and some people are just supporting them. We should never be part of that situation. We should never be part. We don't do things that the scriptures does not recommend. We shouldn't. Even though some of the activities' reasons may be in the mode of goodness, it does not mean that we should be part of it. So people who take to such austerities, according to Bhagavad Gita, are certainly demoniac. And their acts against the scripture injunctions are not beneficial for people in general. They act out of pride, they act out of false ego, they act out of lust and attachment for material enjoyment. That's what's actually the basis for what they do. Now, if you think about it, sometimes some people would just go through some austerity, fasting, and I want this particular change. But then ask yourself as a devotee, they want change and they have tried to convince people that that change is going to help the people of that country. Question: would those people get to go back to Vaikuntha? And if the answer is obviously no, then what good has that particular so-called austerity done to people in general? So that they can do some things would change here in the material world, so that we continue to suffer birth, death, old age, and sickness. So we fasted for that. The person that fasts himself is going to get sick because it weakens the body. And then they want something material. That's why the body shouldn't be part of it. Because the point is, whatever it is that's material, it's still jail life. It's not going to take us out of here. And that's why the Buddhists don't participate in these kind of things. They shouldn't. We shouldn't. So, Shiva Prabhupada continues that a demoniac person can think that they can force his enemy, and other parties to comply with his desire by this method. But sometimes when a person does that and they get ignored and they're determined to fast till they get the result they want, they wind up dying. Because once you're fasting and fasting well beyond the body's capability, you're asking for death then. And then sometimes they allow that to happen because they think they're going to be a hero, giving their body up like that. We should use our bodies to persuade people to become Krishna conscious. That's what Krishna wants us to do, so that we all can be on the path back to Godhead. So forcing other parties to comply with a person's desire by fasting and, then making a lot of propaganda so people can hear what's going on with that person. These acts are not approved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he says those who do that, Papa said, they're demons. In fact, Sri Prabhupada goes to the extent of saying that such demonstrations, that kind of activity, are actually insults to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because they are acted in disobedience to the Vedic scriptural injunctions. Vedic injunctions says do this, at this time you fast up to this point, and here's why. And then this person, other person who is not a devotee, fasts for a reason that they want. Well, if we do something that we want against what the scriptural injunctions say to do, then that's also an insult to the program of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is disobedience. That's why we need to stay away from those. Now, the Lord does some things that are quite critical that we need to remember. We should remember the ultimate end of these demoniac people. And that has been described clearly. What does the Lord do to such demons? The Lord forces them to take birth in the wombs of demoniac persons. So when they get born again and again and again, they are in a family of demons. So what will happen? they will live consequently by demoniac principles of life, life after life, without knowing the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if one wants to be thrown into demonic activity, I mean, there are even people now who want sense gratification and they think, well, if I live a pious life, my next birth is also going to be one which I will enjoy. More sense gratification things will be available to me. Therefore, I don't mind taking birth, another birth here in this material world. Maya and Parita Jnana, those are those whose intelligence has been stolen by Maya. Hmm? So it is obviously a situation where they are thinking they're going to enjoy, just like people who are enjoying now think. They tend to leave out the problems that the material world causes. We are in the middle of that now. There's snow falling, and who knows how many people will get into all kinds of problems because of the snow. Hmm? So those who want to take over the material world, like the demons, don't be part of it because the material world is already a place where it's designed only to give you limited sense gratification, limited. And problems can happen at any time, and we have no control over that. Even Hiranyakashipu, that controlled the demigods, defeated the demigods, and they had to, and demigods, of course, have so much responsibility given by Krishna for different things that they could do. Here in the material world, they have control over. But Hiranyakashipu was controlling them. So the certain type of weather was according to the way he wanted. Everything was done based on Hiranyakashipu. And you couldn't be defeated. And so what happened? The Lord came, half man, half lion. All of the boons that Hiranyakashipu had gotten from Lord Brahma didn't matter. Hiranyakashipu was still killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the bottom line is if we stay with Krishna, then we have nothing to worry about. Hmm? So here, anyone who never likes, this is a conclusion, one who never likes to talk about or hear about God, that person is a demon. It does not matter how nicely they do things. If they don't want to hear about the Lord or talk about the Lord, that person is a demon. And devotees should stay away from such demons. They should not socialize. We should not socialize with these demons or reveal our minds to them. Mm. Sometimes we're in situations where a person seems to be, oh, quite wise, you know. They don't believe in God, but they could do this, they can do this, they can do this. If just from what they do that seems to be in the mode of goodness, we become close to them, associate with them, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time that they're going to do something that we will very much regret that we were around them and allowed them to do such things to us. If you're not God conscious, that's not a person to be around. The person that's not God conscious. Bottom line. So a person whose favorite activity is also sense gratification is also demonic. Mm-hmm. Demonic instruction, the way they live their lives, is to take everything selfishly. They don't like to help others. So a person who doesn't like to talk about God, you need to identify them. They don't like to hear about God, that's demonic. Even those who say they are agnostic, you are either with the Lord or you're not. Agnostic are also demons people. I'm taking the middle of a road. There's no middle of a road. Either you're in the darkness or you're in the light. That's all. So devotees should stay away from such demons. Don't socialize with them. Certainly don't reveal your minds to them. A person who is not God conscious. A person, so you can give you association, but be careful what you take from them. So sense gratification, heavy sense gratification, demon. And they do things selfishly. So with that identification, we can in fact begin to discriminate, and that's our own choice. Discriminate about persons that we socialize with. Does not mean that you treat some people because they're race badly. No, that's not what we're talking about. We should treat everybody nicely. We should treat everybody nicely. When we give our association, it should be very nice because that will make the person interested in being our friend and we can pull them into Krishna consciousness. And that's what Krishna wants. But we should also understand the negative part, a person who is a demon and what they are about and what they do and what they like to involve themselves in, or what they talk about, and so on. So we can, in fact, stay with devotees and stay away from demons in general, unless we want to help them. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you again, giving me the chance to do some service and preaching. This is the time to unmute yourself, and if you have questions, takeaways, even suggestions, you can at that point. You can raise your hand or you can just start speaking. Hare Krishna. Raise your electronic hand, that is. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Parikshit Prabhu. Very, very wonderfully explained. Very clear. You made
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy. Then.
Very clear for us, and being such a let's say, kind of being in the minority, as people aspiring, to be Krishna conscious, and we're forced to interact. The question always comes up, just there has to be some interaction, and just being able to exercise discretion, use our intelligence, having spiritual strength ourselves, and not going into situations that we know could be dangerous for us. And I'll share this. I heard this from a devotee. I shared this the other day, but this was on Thursday night. We were talking about this as well.
Yeah.
There was a devotee. He had or before he came to Krishna consciousness, he had an alcohol problem, and he recovered, and he's he's doing well. He's chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regular principles. He's aspiring for initiation, and anyway, some devotees were talking about going to Sadhu Sangha this year. And they were talking. He came to him. He says, "Oh, well, I'm not going," and it's like very strongly, "I'm not going." And he says, "It's in New Orleans."
Yeah.
He says, "I know myself, and I know New Orleans. New Orleans is known for." He says, "Just the smell of alcohol is all over the air."
Yes. You got a point.
And he says, I'm just not doing it. I'm not putting myself in that situation where I could possibly be tempted to. And I had so much respect for that, understanding one's limitations, understanding where one's weaknesses are or could be, and subjecting yourself to them. That Maya is very strong, and yeah, it's just kind of the question of like making sure we exercise our discretion. And sometimes we think we're a little too clever and that we're maybe stronger than Maya. We put ourselves in situations where we don't go into and we become impacted or affected by it.
Yeah. Um, very good point. But it goes two ways though. Um, I remember before I even begin to comment on the situation that the way you described it with this particular devotee. He knew his limitations, and New Orleans will bring some memories of things that he's involved with, and he doesn't want to get back into it again. So that makes it's very understandable. I was in New York. This is New York City, and I was from where I was driving. I realized that I was pretty close to 26 Second Avenue. So, and I was there for a different reason. I was there on business at that time. We were running a small company from Gidenagri doing health and beauty products, and I was marketing to different stores. And so on the way to this particular address in New York City, I got close to 26 Second Avenue. So I found a way, as difficult as it is, to park at a meter. Hmm? You put coins in the meter and then walk to 26 Second Avenue because I'd never been there. And opened the door and got in. And the first thing I smelled was a lot of incense, which is, not surprising. But there was such a change. It was such a calming place. And I was just, thinking, so this is where Srila Prabhupada was, and then all the memories coming back to me from what I read in Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. I took darshan of the deities early morning. It was like 11 in the morning. And where the deity was open, you could see the deity doors were not closed. Then after 15 minutes, I left, and the whole thing, that reason I'm saying this is when I opened the door to get out of 26 Second Avenue, New York came just blasting me in the face. More the passion, more the ignorance. It's like you open the door and the sound is huge, big, big difference. And going in too, but coming out, I experienced it more. Going in terms of just leaving, because I was busy about where I was parking and so on, and how to get there. And I was just walking, so I wasn't really being mindful. Just focused on 26 Second Avenue. I got to the door, opened it, and closed. And immediately I'm looking at the DDs. So, of course, my mind was on that, hmm, the devotion part. But when I was finished and I was leaving 26 Second Avenue, I opened the door again to come out. Boy, you, you better believe it, boy. Whew, New York City. Hmm? And the energy was devastating, very demonic. Hmm? So I can understand this person thinking that going to New Orleans, even though there's Sadhusanga and there's going to be a place where there's a concentration of positivity and devotees are going to be there and Hare Krishna mantra is going to be there. He was a little worried about the rest of it once you get out of the Sadhusanga place and you are now in the city. What happens? Um, if we take shelter of devotees, if you're always around someone who is fixed in their Christian consciousness and not swayed no matter where you're at, when you're around that kind of person, you can go through so many situations and not get affected by it. If we know that we are actually weak and some memories can come back, memories of sense gratification, then it makes sense to take that kind of precaution that this particular devotee you described is taking as, I don't know about New Orleans. I can be affected so much because when I was in Maya, this was what I was doing, and this is what New Orleans presents a lot of that. But we still can go to these kind of places for sadhusanga because we just have to have someone with us that will help us not get our minds steered back towards the sense gratification. Because when you see it, it will affect you. This is true. Mm? That's how Ajamil got into trouble. He saw a prostitute and a Shudra in the embrace, and the prostitute was half naked and didn't care. And this is how he got affected, Ajamil, and got right into. He was a Brahmin, nice, raised nicely, got married and everything, and he left his wife to do this. So yes, he has a point that yes, those kind of environments can affect us in a negative way, but also if we have somebody around us that's fixed up, we won't be able to or Maya won't be able to affect us so much because if we try to go into that, that person will pull us back and say, no, this is not something to do. Mm. So Hare Krishna, thank you for bringing this situation up to describe Hare Krishna. Mm. It's about the divine and demonic. Any other questions or comments? We're almost on top of the hour, so if there aren't any, then I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to do the service. I always like to talk to the Philadelphia sadhus. Mm. So just stay safe and, of course, chant Hare Krishna mantra because that's the situation for Kali Yuga. That is the real mantra for salvation and everything else, for love and all. So have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Parikshit Prabhu, again,
Hare Krishna.
for
Jai.
for coming on. To the devotees that are online from Philadelphia, our Sunday feast today is canceled because of the snowstorm. So please stay safe and warm. And we will. Today is the appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya.
Advaita Charya. Yeah.
So we'll observe a fast until noon. Please take the moment today to read about his pastimes.
Mm,
And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita,
yeah.
Chaitanya Bhagavat.
Mm, yeah. Thank you for announcing. Yeah, it is the appearance of Advaita Charya. And he's the one who talked and preached, and not preached, but prayed and prayed and prayed to get Lord Chaitanya to come himself, the Lord to come himself. And there's so much to him also, and his wife. Mm. So yeah, if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, I actually forgot it was I had seen it earlier, but I forgot. Otherwise, I'd have just broken this to talk a little bit about Advaita Charya also. Mm. He's says so much in Chaitanya Bhagavad and Chaitanya Charitamrita. He is really, really wonderful. Maybe I'll say just one thing. He was a servant. He was older. He came before Lord Chaitanya came. But he always considered himself a servant of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya always considered him an elder. So he paid respects to him as an elder. But Advaita Chaitanya didn't like that. He always wanted ways to show that he was serving. So that's what we learned from it. We always should be servant. That mindset should always be there. And that's what will make us happy. Hare Krishna. Thank you for announcing this. All
Hare
right.
Krishna, thank you, Guruji, for the class. Nice class.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy.
I like the. I forgot that Hiranyaksh was mining the gold, and that's how the earth drowned. So I
Yeah,
just it reminded me. Thank you so much.
yeah. He took a lot of gold, a lot of gold. In fact, some places begin to put two and two together and say that Hiranyaksha actually started in the Brazil area. That's been
Mm,
mentioned. So, yeah, there's a lot of gold in that area. Of course, there's gold in different parts, but that's where he was based. Mm.
yeah, thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhivya eva cha patitanam
Bhavani
Vaishnavi.
Vishnu Namo Namaha.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Thank you again. Hare Krishna.
Mhm.
Jai.